thank you very much for that. And this is really a great job by giving us an opportunity for a continued engagement with your embassy, through your embassy. And I'm sure our students will be greatly benefited from this opportunity. This is something I think a very new concept of online internship, and we are looking forward for its success and to spread it over the wide spectrum of other disciplines, inshallah. If it goes well, I'm sure it will go well. The interest of the students, you can gauge that having look at the sessions which you have in this internships. They are mostly related to the IR or the political or the other domains. But here you find the students from the other disciplines like business and management sciences, which will be a question for their professional internship. But I'm sure they are interested to enhance their political and international awareness, which will be very useful for them. I would also like to recount our brotherly relationships with the country of the age fellow countries and brotherly countries. The most important is that this forum will also provide an opportunity for our young generation, because this feeling and this brotherly relations and their importance should be inculcated into the next generation, which is our responsibility. They should understand, and Excellency, who understands better than the importance of this brotherly relationship and historic support which we have always got from your country, being an ex-naval officer. It is very important, and it is important for this generation to know that and take this friendship from here onward and strengthen it with the time. I know that you have a very positive time, and I'll not take much time. Thank you very much for providing us this opportunity, and we are looking forward to broaden its spectrum and the success of this, and we'll do our best, inshallah, to make it a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such astute comments. I'm sure everyone here reiterates emphatically. Now, sir, Your Excellency, if you could just please share your remarks with us.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Director General Rear Admiral Rahman, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Tengku Faisal, who later on joining with us. Esteemed panelists, Dr. Abdul, Gaffar, Karim from University of Gajah Mada, who joining us online, and distinguished participants, students of Bahria University, and faculties members. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, indeed, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to be here. This is the second time I standing in this podium to have a dialogue and interactions with Bahria University students. And today's I bring some of the programs together with many panelists from Indonesia, experts from Indonesia, to share their thought, their views about Indonesia's experience as one of the democratic countries, how we survived, several times the economic turbulence, and how we now become as of today. So I think, let me give you a little bit on the backgrounds why we think this is important, because Director General Rear Admiral Rahman mentions this is a new concept. Well, actually, it is because of the COVID. because of the COVID, when I arrived here, I arrived during the COVID, I understood that, the interaction is very limited. But I tried to find ways using technologies. Why not using technologies because of the Zoom, because of the video conference? Why not inviting some experts from Indonesia so they can share their views, their thought on different aspects of Indonesia? Why? Because we share a lot in common. This is something that I learned, Director General. We share a lot in common, and the similarities goes beyond the cuisines, beyond the customs, beyond the religions that we share. But if you look at the history, the same. Indonesia got independence 2 years before Pakistan, and we also have, 3 times experienced difficulties in terms of the economic crisis, political crisis also. But Alhamdulillah, we survived, and there was up and downs. So Pakistan not alone. I understand that people in the last 2 years, I learned people keep raising criticisms against the conditions of Pakistan. You are not alone, believe me. Many countries have similar experience. So I want to raise this awareness and also bring optimism, especially for the younger generations of Pakistanis, who, what we are trying to provide, Real Admiral as a Director General of the Bahria Universities, is laying the foundation for you to grab for the future. So now we come up with the idea to arrange this kind of a program, 12 or 14 sessions, program introducing Indonesia from A to Z. Yeah, I hope that it will cover everything about something that you might be interested in. Now, this is the 3rd year. The first years we worked together with the think tank in Islamabad. The second years we worked together with Faisal University, and this year we are gratified that Bahria University is also working together with us in arranging these programs. And let me tell you something, there is a lot of interest nowadays that we receive from many universities, best university in Lahore, who approach us. They want us to make similar program, because I think they want to know about the economy, because how Indonesia survived the economic turbulence. I think this is something that people in Pakistan, students, are very interested. So we designed a program, at least 6 sessions out of 12, 14 sessions, focusing on the economy, with the hope that after attending these sessions, you will get some ideas. And not only ideas, you will hear another good news also that will be delivered by deputy ministers later on. So by having some kind of introductions of Indonesia, hopefully it will intrigue you to study more about Indonesia, and also to grab opportunities to study in Indonesia. Why? The Indonesian government offer scholarships to students from different countries, especially developing countries. And let me tell you something. In the last 3 years, the biggest recipients of the scholarship provided by the government of Indonesia went to Pakistani students. This is for the not only the majority for postgraduate studies, but some also, like 1/3 of the scholarship also for the undergrad. So I understand that all of you probably already undergrad, now wants to take postgraduate, but we also offer doctorate degree in Indonesia. So we hope that with this program, you will encourage to know more about Indonesia, and who knows that some of you had also the opportunity to study in Indonesia. Before I conclude, let me ask you questions. How many of you have been traveling to Indonesia? No?
No, we haven't, but we wish.
Okay. Okay. So another I think I almost forgot to mention, Director General, another reasons why I come up with this new approach by arranging this kind of internship program. Because during my first year's interactions, I learned Pakistani people knows about Indonesia only from three things. One, Sukarno, because our founding fathers, I think all of you during the the education process, you know about Sukarno, how Sukarno also gave support to Pakistan during difficult times, by sending the the military. I think this is also in response to what we received from Pakistani at that times during our fighting for independence, whereby Muhammad Ali Jinnah at that times also made instructions to all Muslim Indian at that time who were sent by the British not to fight with Indonesia, not to fight against Indonesians, but fighting together with Indonesia against colonialism. So Sukarno. Second, I know that many people in Pakistan know about Indonesia because of palm oil, because Indonesia is one of the biggest exporter of palm oil to Pakistan. And the third, Bali. Right? Bali. Everyone in Pakistan knows about Bali more than Indonesia. So I was challenged by this fact. With that, then I try to identify some of the programs whereby now I think I'm very pleased to inform Director General that we are going to establish Indonesian's corner in, hopefully now in the process, National Book Foundations, and another one in National Library. These platforms will provide the opportunity for us to introduce more about the scholarship available for Indonesia. And in fact, on the next month, we'll be collaborating with another good friend of mine from Coventry University, Coventry, UK, whereby many of you, I believe, have aspirations to study in the UK. They have a dual degree program, Coventry and one of the university in Indonesia. And if you check the QS World Ranking, you will find at least 5 universities in Indonesia in the ranks between 200 and 400. So this is not bad, right? I mean, you're taking into account QS World Ranking, 1,000. So I hope these short introductions will encourage you to know more about Indonesia, and also, who knows that you have lucky days, you won the scholarship to study in Indonesia, master degree or doctorate degree. So with that, once again, I thank you so very much, Director General Rahman, for your collaborations in organizing this online internship program. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih, Your Excellency. Thank you very much. We're not only honored by your presence here today, but also by your commitment to the learning and development of the youth in Pakistan. I truly hope one day we all get to travel to Indonesia and explore in person beyond just Bali. Now, I would like to share with you all a message that a very special individual has shared with us today, the Deputy Foreign Minister for Information and Public Diplomacy, Mr. Turku Faisal, and we'll be playing that message now.
My dear friend, Ambassador Adam Mulawarman Tugio, Rear Admiral Zakaur Rahman, DG Bahria University of Islamabad Campus, distinguished panelists and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us all. Good afternoon. Let me first and foremost congratulate the Indonesian Embassy in Pakistan and the Bahria University of Islamabad for the convening of online internship program. Through this program, we hope to enrich knowledge about Indonesia And at the same time, we hope that this program can stimulate exchange of views on the topics discussed among scholars, students, and people in general. The OIP applies a two-way learning approaches. First, they provide a platform to analyze modern Indonesia from various aspects. And second, they allow participants to explore potential cooperation from the current state of bilateral relations. Distinguished participants, our two countries have many similarities. To mention a few, we have large numbers of Muslim population, and we share similar history of colonializations. And today, we strive for economic and social betterment for our people. Let us not forget that in 1955, Indonesia and Pakistan, together with Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and India, initiated the Asia-Africa Conference to advocate the values of solidarity, friendship, and cooperation. These values remain relevant in the context of today's geopolitical and geoeconomic landscape, where we face global competition among major powers. It is therefore important for our two countries to strengthen our cooperation amidst these challenges. Today, Indonesia and Pakistan enjoy a good and multifaceted bilateral relations. Our relation not only focus in the economic and in the socio-cultural aspect, but we also collaborate in various international fora. Recently, we worked closely to address the issue Islamophobia. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, we must continue to invest in efforts to strengthen mutual understanding and people-to-people connection between our two countries. And the OIP is one of the paths to achieve this goal. Therefore, let us make the most of this program to share insights and experiences, to draw best practices of both countries from the past and the present, and to explore possible future collaboration. I do hope that the outcomes of this program can be disseminated among others through local media. Moreover, my office will look at the possibility of selected OIP alumni to participate in public diplomacy programs such as the Indonesia Arts and Culture Scholarship and Friends of Indonesia. In this program, the participant will have an opportunity to visit and stay in Indonesia and learn firsthand about the country. Let me end my short remarks by expressing my hope that you will have a meaningful online internship program. I thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Our gratitude to Dr. Faisal Shah, I'm sure, has already been conveyed. I, for one, grew up listening to my father's stories about his time in Bali and how beautiful the place was. In addition to that, what he was most passionate about was the kindness of the people. And I'm so glad, because of the modern technology, the children in university get to experience the wonderful nature of the Indonesian people in person. So I'm sure this internship program is a step in the right direction for strengthening a long-standing brotherhood between the two nations, and I'm sure it's going to benefit the students greatly for their lives ahead. I would now like to request the Honorable Director General of Banyu University, Islamabad Campus, to present His Excellency with a small token of our appreciation.
The Director General mentioned to me that he was actually in Japan. Okay. I think I have the right of replies also. This is something big. This is
since His Excellency was wanted to tell the students about our participation in the tsunami operations. I happened to be in Jakarta just a few days before the tsunami came. And while the tsunami came, our ship, Pakistan Navy, two ships, big ships, PNS Nasser and Tariq, we were parked or anchored in Male. So these were the two ships in the world who provided the very first rescue operations. And I picked up about 467, including 19 Indians from the atolls of the Maldives. And the point I wanted to bring in was that the Pakistani ship then went straight to the Indonesia for the rescue operations. So this is how we feel in the difficult times about the two nations. And I'm sure these students, young generation, will take this flag even further. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih, and thank you once again for all of the participants and the esteemed guests here today. Now, this was a highly interactive session, and I'm sure we will all go away thinking so much more about this partnership than ever before. I will now request the guests to gather for a small tea.
Assalamu alaikum. Today with us is Karim, Dr. Abdul Karim, who is the head of Department of Politics and Government of Universities of Raharja, Mother, and editor-in-chief of Electoral Governance. And his main research and consultant activities are, he is the coordinator, election corner, and national facilitator and consultant and leading facilitator of She Leads program from IFES and Postpapul UI. His main publications, we can see that they are Catatent, Paramenthon, which is and the other is Repression and Relances. So today our topic will be Discourse of Islam and Nationalism in Indonesia. Indonesia is a country with the largest Muslim population in the world. Around 87% of the Indonesians Indonesia's 270 million population are Muslim, which is almost 87%. And despite this, Indonesia is not an Islamic country. The constitution and in 1945, Indonesia got independence, and its area is almost 735,358 square miles. We can see that their constitution and national ideology of Pancasila, of which is 5 basic principles, which guarantee freedom to religion and religion for all faith believers. Navigating option between Islam and nationalism has become subjective of constant debate in the history of Indonesia since its inception, and has continued to characterize the diversity and popularism of Indonesia. The session will focus on this subject and explore how discourse about Islam and nationalism has continued to resonate in modern Indonesia. Now I would like to call on Dr. Abdul Karim to speak about the topic of discourse of Islam and nationalism in Indonesia.
Thank you. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. We have 2-hour differences. It's already like almost 3 p.m. here in Indonesia. I am so happy to be here with you. Well, when I say I am so happy, that's not entirely true, actually. I will be happier if only I was there among you in the same room with you. but I couldn't. I'm so far away from you here, from online from Indonesia. Last year, the session was fully online, so there is no some kind of gap between you and me. Everybody was online, so I was online from Indonesia. The participants were online from Pakistan, but today you are on site in there, sitting together, and I really wish I was there with you to present the idea. So again, when I say I'm so happy to be here, that's not entirely true. I'm half happy because I can be with you all the online. So I'm going to share my presentation. How long do I have for the presentation?
You would be presenting for 1 hour and for 30 minutes for the question answers.
Okay, 1 hour will be too long. Probably I will take less than that. So let's see how it goes. This is gonna be more introductory topics because I understand that some of you are learning, trying to understand the political features of Indonesia. The ambassador mentioned that many people in Pakistan knows our first president, Sukarno, and of course knows Bali, but not too many people understand the whole political characteristic of Indonesia with relation to Islam and nationalism. So my presentation will address this issue. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Does it display the, hang on.
Yes, it is on display.
Okay, so my presentation is entitled Indonesia, Religious or Secular State. This is a question. And it is indeed a big question even for us in Indonesia. Are we really a secular state, or are we, is Indonesia a religious state? If you watch the news recently, for example, there are millions of Indonesians going for Haji pilgrimage to Mecca, and it's managed by the state. And we do have a minister for religious affairs. The government, the state, manage the pilgrimage down to the last details. They provide the foods, they provide the transportation for the Jama'ah, they provide everything. So this make us look like a religious state where the state facilitate religious practices. The state provides some masjids in many places. The state also built churches. In many universities, we have religious facilities. So sometimes we look like religious state, but in other cases, we are more secular state than religious. So in this short session, probably it will take like half an hour or so, I will address this issue. But first, let me introduce myself. I have been introduced, of course, but my name is Abdul Gaffar Karim. I am Indonesian. I am from minority, if you like, minority ethnic group background. I was born in a small island in East Java called Madura. So ethnically speaking, this is a smaller group as compared to Java, for example. In Indonesia, Java comprises like 60 to 70% of the populations, and other comprises a smaller percentage of Indonesian populations. So I am currently the head of the Department of Politics and Government at Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta. If the ambassador said that many Pakistani people knows Bali, I don't know how many people in Pakistan knows Yogyakarta. Just for your information, Yogyakarta is also one of the tourist destinations in Indonesia. After Bali, of course, Bali is is the most famous tourist destination in Indonesia. I divided this presentation into 4 sub-sessions. We will look at the country. We will look at the social and political features of Indonesia. Then we look at the history of the debates between nationalism and Islamism, or Islamic ideas of the state. Then we look at the Sharia outlook today, how Sharia is implemented today, and what is the prospect. The largest part of this presentation is on the history of the debate between Islam and nationalism in Indonesia. Let's look at the country. So this is the most recent map of Indonesia. Last year, we just have established new provinces as the split of the easternmost island of Indonesia, called the island of Papua. We established 4 new provinces in there, namely the Central Papua, the Highland Papua, the South Papua, and Southwest Papua. Previously, there were only 2 provinces in this huge island. We had Papua and we had West Papua. These days, we have 6 provinces in this island. So altogether, now we have 38 provinces. 38 provinces in Indonesia, including a number of special regions. For example, I mentioned earlier that I am currently in Yogyakarta. Well, Yogyakarta until today is still a monarchy. So we have a kingdom within a republic. Well, in fact, we have many kingdoms, many smaller kingdoms within this republic, but there is only one with effective government, with effective administrations, which is Yogyakarta. This kingdom of Yogyakarta has the provincial status in Indonesia, but it is still run by a king. The king is the governor of Yogyakarta. So, and we have other special regions, but we have only one special regions with a monarchy. Now, so again, this is the latest provincial map of Indonesia. If we look at the Southeast Asian context, Indonesia is taking the largest. Indonesia takes the largest part of Southeast Asia. If you look at the map, the area, the green area is the Southeast Asian countries, and Indonesia comprises the largest part of it. And other countries in Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, the Philippines, and Thailand, and other smaller states like Brunei Darussalam, or probably one of the most famous Southeast Asian state is Singapore. If you are flying to and from Southeast Asia, most likely you'll be flying from a transiting area of Singapore, from the transiting airport of Singapore. So this is Indonesia in Southeast Asian context. It's quite far from Pakistan. Well, probably it's like 8-hour flying from Pakistan or so. Frankly speaking, I've never been to Pakistan. I've been to New Delhi, but never been to Islamabad. I really hope that one day in the near future I can be there to meet you all in Pakistan. And here is some features of Indonesia. We have many islands. There has been an agreement, a disagreement about how many islands actually we have. Some people say we have 17,000 islands, inhabited islands, but other people say that we have up to 25 or 27 islands. Well, the differences was because there are many islands that sometimes disappear when the tide is high. So I'm taking the moderate number here. So 17,000 islands is the islands that is always there, no matter how high or how low the tide is. So this day we have more than 270 million people. It's a very huge population. We are the fourth most populous country in the world. I think we are only outnumbered by the US, China, and India. And Java, the island of Java, where I am currently now, is the island with the highest density on the planet, almost 1,000 people per kilometer square. So it's a very, very dense population. We have hundreds of ethnic groups. As I mentioned earlier, I am from smaller ethnic groups of Madura. And the largest ethnic group is Java, and other smaller groups, including Sundanese, Maduris, and other ethnic groups. We have hundreds of religious groups, including both local and global religion. But if we talk about the largest religion is Islam. In the figure here, we have, I present more global religion. Although we do have some local religion with really limited number of adherents in some local communities. The largest religious group is Islam, certainly. About 85 to 87% Indonesians are Muslim. But even among the Muslims themselves, there are some disagreements. For example, some people said that Ahmadiyya people are not Muslim, so they are not calculated as Muslims. Some even say that Shia are not Muslim, so this reduces the percentage of Muslim. But if we count everyone, including Ahmadiyya and Shia, the number can reach as high as 87% of the populations are Muslim. The other religious groups are much smaller than that, demographically speaking, that is. So we have 7% of Protestantism, the adherent of Protestantism. We have 2.9% of Catholics, and we have less than 1% in total of Hinduism, less than 1% of Buddhism, and less 1% of Confucianism. So again, Indonesia is the vast majority, demographically speaking. But if we look at the geography, it is not always true that Muslims are the vast majority, because if we look at the figure here, if we look at the picture here, Islam is dominant in some islands, particularly Sumatra and Kalimantan. The westernmost island in Indonesia, the westernmost large island in Indonesia is Sumatra. And this is predominantly Muslim, with the darker green in color if you look at the map. In Java, we have more traditional Islam. Again, this is just the way to generalize the map. So we have mostly Islamic or Muslim societies in the western part of Indonesia. But in eastern part of Indonesia, we have Protestantism. In Maluku, or in North Sulawesi, or in Papua and other places, we also have Catholicism all over the places. So again, although Muslims are demographically, in terms of the number of the populations, are majority, but geographically speaking, Indonesia is not really predominantly Muslim. there are the regions with predominantly other religious group. So this is the features of Indonesia. We can discuss this number later if needed, but let's look at the state ideology. It has been mentioned previously that our state ideology is Pancasila. This is this term Pancasila is taken from Sanskrit. It means 5 principles, because it is developed from 5 principles. First, religion. Second, nationalism. Third, humanism. Socialism, and internationalism, or democracy. Sorry. So there were 5 basic ideologies that by the founding fathers of Indonesia was excuse me, I'm gonna need to take a 2-minute silence because there is adhan for asar here. I'm back. Sorry about the interruption. So let me continue. So we developed, the founding fathers developed Pancasila, or the 5 principles, from the 5 contrasting ideologies, and then they formulated these principles, starting with believing in God, and followed by other principles. This principle has always been imposed by the state, the government, and implemented systematically as the foundations of the state management in Indonesia. However, this, as I will discuss in more details later, Pancasila is also negotiated and renegotiated. I will come back to that later, but for now, let us check the speech of President Sukarno at the US Congress in 1956. I hope the connection is good enough to transmit the video, the picture, and the sound. Let me know if there are some troubles about the video.
We had proclaimed our independence in August 45. We attached as preamble to our constitution the Pancasila, the 5 guiding principles of our national life. First, believe in God. Second, nationality. Third, humanity. Fourth, democracy. Social justice. Yang Soekarno lebih mengikat hati para pemimpin rakyat penyerta ini. Dan sekali lagi mendapat tepuk tangan yang bergemuruh ketika menyelesaikan pidatonya.
So that was the speech given by President Sukarno in the US explaining Pancasila as the principles. Now, that's basically the social and political features of Indonesia. Let me move on to the subsection of political history. We can say that Indonesia has been going through a series of ideological debates and conflicts that brought nationalism vis-a-vis religion, particularly Islam. There has been long debate even before 1945 whether Indonesia to become a secular state or more religious state. This will be better understood if we look at the history before 1945, that the idea of Indonesia is not completely agreed among the founding fathers. For example, some founding fathers said that when we say Indonesia, it would include even the islands of Papua in Melanesian region, also the Philippines, the islands of the Philippines. But some others said no, Indonesia is just the area where the Dutch colonial government is established, so that's not included the Philippines. It may include Papua, but not the Philippines. Others even say Indonesia is everything within the Dutch colonial government, but not Papua. So there was the debates in 1945. But then along the course of history, Indonesia managed to include Papua in the claim of Indonesian identity. But if we look at before that, we can understand why Islam is a very important factor. The reason was because mostly Indonesia is about Muslims. Most Indonesian people were Muslims. Before 1969, before 1973, even more than 90% Indonesians were Muslim. But after the integration of Papua, then the percentage of Muslims in Indonesia went down to under 90%. So before that, mostly it's about more than 90% were Muslim. Now let's look at the timeline of Indonesian history. This is the key events of the negotiation between Islam and nationalism. So Indonesian nationalism, as we know it today, was mostly started in the island of Java, where most of the people are were Muslims, and until today are still Muslims. The key locations of Indonesian nationalisms, including the city of Surabaya in East Java and the city of Bandung in West Java. If you check the history of newly independent countries from 1940s, you will find out that Bandung is a very important city because in 1955 we held the Asia Africa Conference, which was attended to by delegation from Pakistan too and from other newly independent countries. It resulted in the 10 principles of Bandung. So Bandung is a very important city in the history of nationalism in Asia and Africa. So, and it is also, Sukarno once mentioned that Bandung was the cook shop of nationalism in Indonesia, because there are many founding fathers were educated in Bandung, although they were not born in Bandung, but they were educated in Bandung. One of the reasons was that there was one of the first universities, one of the first tertiary educations established in Indonesia in Bandung. In in the 20th century, in the dawn of 20th century, the Dutch colonial government established 3 tertiary education facilities in Java. First, the medical school in Surabaya and in Jakarta. Second is the law school in Jakarta. The third is technical school. Technical school is a technic school in Bandung. Technology, School of Technology in Bandung. And our first president was educated in Bandung as an engineer. So let's look at the timeline. Let's look at the timeline. Once again, Indonesian modern state was established in 1945. But if you can see that in this timeline, I also included even from 1934 because it is important. This is one of the manifestations of the tension between secularism and more religious principles in running the state. So in 1934, in 1930s, we had our first national parliament in Indonesia, in the Dutch colonial state. It's called the Volksraad. Volksraad means the house of the people. This is one of the earliest parliament in Southeast Asia, being born at about the same time with the first parliament in Thailand in 1920s and 1930s. So there was this institution called Majelis Islam A'la Indonesia, the highest council of Indonesian Islam. So again, please bear in mind that the region was not officially called Indonesia back then. It is still called the Dutch colonial, the East Indian colonial government, the East Indian colonial state. And yet some Indonesian Muslims and previously some Indonesian communists use Indonesia as their name, and also some Indonesian nationalists. And MIAI is one of the earliest institutions using Indonesia in their names. So again, this MIAI is the Majelis Islam A'la Indonesia, the highest council of Islam in Indonesia. MIAI proposed in 1934 the integration of tax and zakat, because according to their view, it was not fair for Muslim to pay both tax and zakat at the same time. So they proposed that when a Muslim already paid the zakat, they should be eligible for tax reduction. That was their proposal to Volksraad, to the through the Volksraad to the colonial government, but the proposal was not accepted, as far as I know, and the state did not really integrate the taxation system with the zakat mechanism. But these days, this proposal, the idea of integrating tax and zakat, is one of the most largely practiced across the world, including Indonesia. When you already pay for zakat, you can apply for tax reduction. In some countries, like Australia, for example, when I lived for a couple of years for postgraduate study, it is really easy to claim your tax reduction when you can show the proof of zakat payment or other religious charity for that matter. And again, the idea has been proposed by MIAI in 1934, well before the Indonesian independence. Now, when Indonesia was established, or before that, so the proclamation of independence was made in 17th of August 1945. So we celebrate this date every year as our Independence Day, 17th of August 1945. But Indonesia is formally declared as a country in 18th of August 1945. Before that, couple of months before that, the founding fathers formulated Pancasila. And this is a very important stage of the debate between Islam and nationalism. In 22nd of June 1945, a small team consisting of 9 people, so we call it the Team of 9, formulated the preamble of the constitutions with the 5 principles. It is interesting that the first principle said believing in God. No, it's not really believing in God. The term is ketuhanan, meaning the godship. The translation to believing in God is not 100% correct. In Indonesian term, ketuhanan means, godship, being able to understand the presence of God and to respect the idea of there is a God, particularly in more Abrahamic perspective of monotheism. So the first principle said something about godship, about the country should respect the belief in God. Plus, there is this sentence, there is this historical sentence that says, with the obligations to implement Islamic Sharia for its adherents. So it is mentioned in the draft of the preamble in the 22nd of June 1945 that Indonesian state should implement Islamic Sharia, although it is only for Muslims, for the adherents of Islam. That was in the 22nd of June 1945. On the 17th of August, on the evening of the 17th of August, there was some quick talks among the founding fathers that leads to the amendment of the first principle of Pancasila from believing in God and the obligations to implement Islamic Sharia for its adherents into simply believing in God, as mentioned by Sukarno in the speech that I played before. Even, well, the actual words in bahasa Indonesia is ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. Actually, the actual meaning is monotheism, actually. Monotheism. But it is interesting that the mention of Sharia Islam was rejected on the same day of the proclamation of independence, and on the 18th of August, the country, the new Indonesian state was inaugurated with the first principle, believing in single God, ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, not believing in God and with the obligations to implement Islamic Sharia for its adherents. So the idea of Indonesian state implementing Sharia was rejected on the evening before the establishment of the state. So that was in 1945. In 1955, about 10 years after the independence, the founding fathers started to rethink the state constitutions, to rethink the state ideology. Following the 1955 elections, we had a special structure. Apart from the parliament, we have something called constituante. Constituante means an institution to formulate constitution. We call it constituante. It's taken from Dutch language. It's constituante. One of the tasks was to formulate the state ideology. This was the era when Islamic leaders tried to carry forward Islamic ideas. Leaders like Muhammad Natsir said that Indonesia should implement Islamic Sharia. Islam should be the foundations of Indonesia. So within the Constituante, there were debates that brought Pancasila and Islam in a positioning state. So it was about the choice between Pancasila and Islam. But then in 1959, President Sukarno dismissed Constituante and decreed that Indonesia went back to 1945 Constitution. And that brought Indonesia to back to Pancasila and stopped the debate between Pancasila and Islam. But before we continue, before I quickly address some other important event, I need to highlight, I need to underline that when the founding fathers said something about the implementation of Islamic Sharia in 1945, what they had in mind was actually something that has been going on even before the establishment of Indonesian state. Since 1940s, or even before that, since 1930s, the Dutch colonial government has facilitated the Haji pilgrimage to Makkah using the steamboat back then. It took like 4 months to go there and about 4 to 5 months to go back to Indonesia. But it was facilitated by the Dutch government. There were also structures to facilitate the practices of Islam in Indonesia called the Shumobu in Japanese occupation era. The Shumobu is let's say the embryo of the Indonesian Ministry of Religious Affairs. So even before 1945, the state whatever the state was called, the state has already implemented Islamic Sharia on some limited aspect of it, including the marriage and the Haji pilgrimage. So the debate on Islamism and Pancasila was not really ideological. It's more like more practical of the implementation of Islam in daily life. So let me move quicker to the other steps of history. So in 1965, Sukarno was brought down from power, and General Suharto took the role as the leader of Indonesia. There has been some debates what really happened in 1965 to 67, but what really happened was that there was transition from Sukarno to Suharto. And in 1984, it took almost 20 years for General Suharto to impose the sole principles, to impose Pancasila as the sole principle of every institutions and every organizations in Indonesia. So even Islamic-based organization should accept Pancasila. So in 1984, the debates between Islam and Pancasila was formally put into stop, formally put into a halt. There were more debates. But then in 1998, General Suharto resigned, stepped down from power, and we started the political reform. And we partly reopened the ideological debate. But it didn't bring Islam to the surface as it was in 1955. This time, there are some symptoms, there are some practices of Sharia that I'm going to discuss in a smaller and a little bit more detailed later on. So what I'm going to highlight in this step is that Sharia is still in practice in Indonesia. Doesn't matter we call it Indonesia as an Islamic state or not, but Sharia, Islamic Sharia is still there in daily life in Indonesia. We have Ministry of Religious Affairs. As I mentioned earlier, it is, although it is established in 1945, of course, but the embryonal form of this ministry has been there since at least 1940s during the Japanese occupation era. We still have the Haji pilgrimage facilitated by the state, totally by the state, sometimes with the help of more private companies with the extra facilities, but the basic facilities, including the flight, the accommodations in Makkah and Medina and Arafah, and the foods and health support and other facilities are provided by the government, by the Ministry of Religious Affairs, particularly the Directorate General of Haji. And these days we have some Islamic laws there are some laws in Indonesia that is based on Islamic principles, covering aspects of marriage, education, inheritance, etc. We do have religious court in Indonesia available only for Muslim. So although in 1945, many people rejected the idea of mentioning the implementation of Sharia Islam in Pancasila, but it is still there in practice. So Islamic Sharia is ideologically rejected by many people, but in practice it is accepted. There is no complaint about the Haji facilitation. There was no complaint about the religious court. There was some criticism, but not actual complaint about the whole setup. So let us move on to the next step. So that was the history. Now, what happened to the Sharia today? These days, as I mentioned earlier, Sharia is no longer a strongly ideological theme. Sharia is more like practices. Islamic Sharia is facilitated by the state at some aspects, but facilitated by the society in other aspects. Islamic Sharia now appears at local levels and some financial sectors. Let me highlight some example. In some region, there are some local regulations that are partly or entirely based on Islamic values. For example, restriction on the consumption of alcohol and the prohibition of gambling and other things. And this implementation of Sharia law in some region has been mimicked by regions with different religious dominations. For example, when in area with that are predominantly Christian, now they implement the law of from the Bible at some aspect. There was no substantial differences between regions with more religious regulations and other that has no religious regulations, because sometimes it's just the labeling of some regulations. These days, 24 out of 38 provinces do mention religious principles in their laws. But interestingly, this tendency was mostly initiated by secular political parties, not by Islamic political parties. The implementation of Islamic Sharia in some regions were initiated by parties like PDIP, one of the dominant party in Indonesia, which is, the basic principle is not Islam. It's more like secular nationalism. So these days, although at national level, we don't approve Sharia as to be formalized in the law, we practice that in many aspects. But then in local government, there are some regulations that use Islam as the basic principle. And this is another thing that I need to mention, that there has been the growth of Sharia banking, but I believe this is not exclusive to Indonesia. This is not exclusive to Indonesia because it's also evident in other countries. So we do have Bank Syariah Indonesia these days, the Indonesian Sharia banking system, which is a financial system based on Islamic concept of non-riba finance. Non-riba is, of course, very Islamic in its concept. This is also demand-driven because there has been growing concerns of some Muslims on the conventional banking interest. Some Muslims started to feel uncomfortable, if you like, with the conventional interest system. So the use of more Islamic terms gives some peace of mind to them. These days, more than 40% of Sharia banking is managed by the state, by Indonesian government, through the Bank Syariah Indonesia or Indonesian Sharia banking. Again, this is, if you could please excuse me, there is someone knocking my door. I just need to check really quickly. Sorry about that. Really sorry about that. Now we are reaching the end of this presentation, thankfully. So what is the prospect of the debates between Syariah and Pancasila in Indonesia? For me, it is clear that Indonesia will remain a nationalist, semi-secular state with implementations of Islamic-based regulations in various sectors. I believe that most Indonesia will avoid the open debate on whether Indonesia will become a religious state or not. But in practice, people will accept that we do have Islamic banking, we facilitate some Islamic religious activities, that the government even facilitate the Haji pilgrimage, etc. People accept that as a normality, but people will reject everything about any idea about formalizing Indonesia Islamic Sharia in the Indonesian law system. The debates on the role of religions will continue to exist, but I believe it will take more pragmatic tones. For example, on how religion should play the role in promoting peace and welfare for the society. For example, the Nahdlatul Ulama movement, one of the largest Islamic organizations in Indonesia and the world, last year initiated the Religion 20 Summit as the attachment to the G20 Summit in Bali, in Indonesia. And the purpose is to promote religion as the solutions to the world problems. That's why I believe that, again, the debates on the role of religion will probably continue to exist, but it will take more pragmatic tones rather than ideological tones. So as the final remarks, there is this very interesting book from like 5 years ago, written by one of leading scientists on Indonesia that you can read. I give you the link under the book cover. If you could copy the link on your browser, it will bring you to the online file of the book. So if you want to know more about Indonesia, this book is really interesting. This book is very important. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Abdul Gaffar Karim. It was nice listening to you. Now I would like to audience to ask any question regarding the topic. If they are willing to do, you will be well appreciated for it. You want to do some any question? Anyone? I see that there is no one to ask any question. Thank you. Thank you, Abdul Gaffar. It was really nice listening to you. That's all from us, our side. Do you want to add anything, Abdul Gaffar?
Sorry, what was that again?
We don't have any question regarding the topic. So do you want to add anything, or we can end the session?
I think that was all from me, but let me mention something that I do really hope that I could meet any of you in the near future, both in Indonesia and Pakistan, so that we can discuss further about the topics. I do really suggest you read the books that I have shared the link to you, and I can also share you my presentation file if you like. I can send you through the embassy.
It would be really grateful if you will do it. It will help us a lot. Thank you. Now I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Abdul Fikar. So thank you very much, everyone.